Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to episode 3 on our series. I'm so happy and super excited that you guys are here today. My name is Wendy, and I am a transformational coach and content creator. And today, I have the beautiful Ariel back here with us. And Ariel is a holistic fitness coach, and I'm honored. I'm excited that you're back here, and I just love the conversation that we're going to dive into today.
Yay, yes. I'm so excited to be here again and just continue our awesome conversations we've been having. We've kind of walked through a whole process, been through a change, even in these videos, and I'm excited to just kind of wrap up sort of how to, we talked about blocks in the last episode, and now just focusing on how do you actually shift your relationship with the block so that in the process of change, you're actually doing it with a lot more ease, a lot more presence and enjoyment, rather than, I think a lot of times what comes up is maybe judgment and rejection of some of these blocks. So I'm excited to dig into that material with you today too.
Yes, I love that. Thank you so much for that, Ariel. That was so beautiful. And yes, acknowledging that, whenever you're invited to change, there's a lot that's going to come up for you, right? But that's where we get to upgrade our system. Right? And change the relationships that we have with these parts of ourselves that are here with us, even if we don't like them, right? Even if they're like very limiting, if you will, right? Because sometimes these parts of ourselves that come up can limit us and can hinder our growth. So how do we upgrade our system? How do we change our relationship with them?
Yeah. Yes, love it. And so important. And honestly, I can just say from personal experience that this juice we're going to talk about here was the biggest transformational part for me, and just completely changed my outlook on change and what that process of evolution really looks like, feels like, and how to navigate it more masterfully. So I'm excited to dig in. Where shall we start?
Yes. Well, let's go ahead and start with just basically sharing how we began to learn how to navigate. So, Ariel, how was it for you when you first started to change? Like, how did you start upgrading your system?
Yeah, great question. So, just to maybe ground a little bit of some of the things that we just said is, so we talked about some of the most common blocks in the last episode. I, shared some of my personal ones that really came up for me. And something for me is I tend to be very visual. And so what happened was I actually developed a character for my blocks, an archetype. And maybe, again, this will help people who are visual learners too. And also, it's a really good exercise that I would recommend to almost either archetype or characterize, these different parts of you. You can see if that resonates. But I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with Dexter. It's a series on Netflix. And he calls something his dark passenger. And that's basically what he calls the parts of himself that are a serial killer. I'm not a serial killer, but I really identified with that just because of how he related to it, right? He saw it as sort of this dark part of himself that would take over, right? And it would initiate a series of patterns of behavior and ways of being that he didn't like, right? Like he didn't like that he was a serial killer. He was known to be sort of like this family man serial killer. So very interesting character. But I started to relate my dark parts. So the parts of me that wanted to, drink until 5 a.m., the parts of me that would have itchings to take certain drugs, the parts of me that was constantly looking for a thrill and stimulation. I started looking at them as my dark passenger. And so I share that because while it was super helpful for me to almost like not identify it with it completely, right? Create that space between, okay, there's me and then there's this part of me, right? So there's some distance. So I was no longer like, this is the only way. I was creating that space. there was a second step to my change where at first there was a lot of judgment around it when it did come up, right? And so when my dark passenger came up, I would judge it and I would reject it, and I would get so mad and frustrated with myself. Ariel, why are you thinking like this? Or, dark passenger, why are you here? Oh, you're different now, right? We don't do this anymore. And almost like part 2 of the evolution was shifting that relationship there of instead of judgment, rejection, really just building that awareness and intimacy to open up to what it was really asking for. And that was a deeper level of transformation for me. So yeah, I guess to start, one was the awareness and intimacy with it. What were the thoughts it was having? And for me, a tool that was really supportive was characterizing it. I always ask this because I think I'm weird, but do you have a character, or do you think of your parts in a certain way, or?
Yeah,
This is just like a curious question.
Yeah, I love your curiosity, and to answer your question, I actually did not like completely characterize it, but I did see myself in different parts. So I was like, oh, that's the ferocious, tenacious part of me, right? So when I first started to lean into really becoming more of a kinder, loving person, it was hard at the beginning. It was really hard. I couldn't completely lean in because there was a lot of judgment. There was a lot of judgment around my intention with wanting to change. Like, Wendy, you can't really change. Like, come on. Like, where are you trying to get at? And when I would try to get into new habits, get a little bit more discipline, I would have a hard time doing it because there was a lot of conversations that I would have that would tell me, you should know better. You should have already gotten this. You should have already figured this out by now.
Yeah.
Like, you should be this way already. And it was really hard because every time that came up, oh gosh, like I just felt so defeated. I was like, man, like I'm just gonna do nothing.
Yeah. I think that's a great point, and like an important thing to highlight is the judgment actually working? So
right.
I think like a lot of the times people think, oh, if I judge myself for this, it'll make me change, or I'll be so harsh on myself and push myself to be better. But actually, like what you're saying is actually the judgment made you defeated and not empowered.
Yes.
It made you stop taking action.
It crippled me, and it caused me suffering. And I had a pivotal moment when I was in a leadership training where I was immersed, and I remember everybody around me was really happy because they had like all these epiphanies. They were stepping into their new ways of being, right? And I felt like I was regressing, and instead I felt very sad. Like I felt sad, and I was like, oh my gosh, I have just realized that I'm not happy like everybody else, and that the happiness that I feel, I sometimes fake. And that really hurt me. And I had the realization then in that moment that what was actually going on was that I wasn't giving myself permission to have a full human experience.
So important.
Yes.
So important. Talk about that more, please. I'm
obsessed. Yes, let me elaborate. So at that moment, whenever I felt upset, whenever I felt angry, whenever I felt sad, whenever I felt like defeated, I made myself wrong for it. Right? I made myself wrong for it. I always said that I shouldn't be feeling this that way. So whenever an emotion came up, whenever I was angry, I was like, I shouldn't be mad. Like, I should be over this already. I had gone through a breakup, as I shared, and I had a lot of emotions and feelings around that. A lot of it was I should have done different. My partner should have done this for me. Like, there was a lot of should haves, right? And when I reflected and emotions came up, I really made myself wrong for it. I made myself I made myself wrong for feeling feelings.
Yeah. And I just want to say, like, I think that's so important, because I think there's like this misconception where, like, if you're changing, you're on the pursuit of personal development and self-growth, it's just going to be like this uphill, like amazingness. But actually, like, real transformation and change, one, it's more like this.
Yeah.
And two, there's times where you're sad, you're angry, you're confused, you're uncertain, right? These emotions that I think we're very conditioned to relate to as negative.
Right.
But again, going back to that, shifting the relationship with those quote unquote negative emotions is really what allows you to be with them and be with yourself in that full human experience, like you said.
Right.
So that sounds huge. And I'm curious, how did you start to shift your relationship with it? Were there any practices or things that you did?
Right. So when I had that epiphany of like, wait a minute, why am I not allowed to be sad? Who told me I wasn't allowed to be sad? And I was like, wait a minute. Like, I'm onto something here. One of my coaches said, and she had asked me, Wendy, are you not allowed to be sad? And I was like, I am. I am. So that was when a lot shifted for me, and I already had excellent awareness, but this was the next level of awareness that I had, and I was like, oh my gosh. Like, it was like my mind blew at that moment. Like, I was like, wait a minute, I'm allowed to be human.
Yeah.
So once I had that awareness of I'm allowed to be human, then whenever any part of me came up, I leaned in with a lot of curiosity. So whenever I was sad, I was like, well, what's underneath that? Why is it here? What's it trying to teach me? Why? Because obviously what's creating this feeling or this emotion is the thought that I'm having. So I connected it back to my mind.
Right.
What am I thinking? That's creating this emotion.
Huge.
Yeah.
Huge. Oh, and I can just be number one advocate for that too. I love what you just said is awareness of the emotion, okay? Getting curious, asking questions to bring it back to what was the thought that created that emotion. And I think realizing that connection really steps you back in your power times 100. And I can also say that was a really powerful practice for me too. And like I said, I'm very visual, and that, so for me, journaling was very helpful as well. And so same line of questioning that you just did, but I would write it down.
Yeah.
And that was a really supportive tool for me too, was being able to see the thoughts.
Yes.
And be like, again, creating that separation, be like, wow, this is what I was thinking. This is maybe why, what was going on, the context. And then I could start to draw patterns, right? Because it was over time that I was doing this journaling. And so I could always reflect back and be like, okay, when this happens, this emotion comes and I feel like this. And you just develop this deep understanding of you. It's like a next level self-awareness, self-mastery. And you can almost one, be more predictive of your patterns of behavior.
Yes.
And you can be proactive to, if you're going to be in a situation that brings anxiety or whatever it may be, you can be proactive and be like, okay, what practices do I need to do to ground in order to be proactive? Because I know that this situation is going to activate these things in me.
Yeah.
So that is huge, huge, huge.
Yeah.
I love that you shared that.
I also love what you just shared right now. And it's what came to my mind was that we get to become the experts of ourselves. Yes. Right? Like we get to see what works for us and what doesn't, because you said it so beautifully. Like there was these patterns that showed up in your life and that you had. And the same thing was for me. It was like, oh my God, I feel deeply. I feel a lot. Mm-hmm. And I had been rejecting this part of myself for so long. And instead I tried to build a wall,
right,
so that I wouldn't feel. But instead I was just suffering. I was suffering because as I created this wall, I wasn't letting nothing come in, not even love.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I just got chills, because it is like, it's the ultimate rejection of self. And where there's rejection or judgment, just like you said, you can't allow love in. Mm-hmm. And so ultimately, like once you can shift that relationship, it does boil down to you build this enormous sense of self-love, self-worth, that is independent of anything you do, you achieve, you don't do, you feeling negatively, you may be acting on these parts that you're still working on, like all of that, right? You love it all. And in that is like the deepest grounding of self-mastery, really. Like you just, I don't know, you just feel so grounded and secure in you. And that is like the deepest, most nourishing space to be in.
Yeah. And just adding on to that, like when you fully allow and accept all these parts of you to just be here, right? And you learn how to master yourself. I know from in my experience, what I've come to realize has been that there is no point of I'm here, like I've arrived, right? Because as you're going through life, you're constantly having experiences, transformations, evolutions, and the juice really is in the journey. I know it sounds cliche, but it's like, how do you be with yourself in those moments of change, transitions, evolutions? How are you with yourself? So whenever change is coming, whenever you're in a space of change, transition, of movement, just really, how do you show up for yourself? How do you be with yourself? Do you give yourself love? Do you give yourself compassion? Do you give yourself space to be human?
Yeah. Oh, so huge. And I just want to say this too, that the whole like being compassionate and acceptance, right? Like that was really hard for me to understand at first, like just to be fully transparent.
Yeah.
My way of thinking was completely different before being introduced to these concepts. And I genuinely, like, compassion was like, I was like, that's for people who don't know how to work hard, who don't know how to, like, just being fully transparent here, that was truly my mindset. And it's not about that. I think one of the most beautiful mantras that I've been given from a coach is that compassion is productive. And that, and it's so counterintuitive for me. I'm a 3 on the Enneagram. I'm an achiever. I'm that type of thing. And so to really sit with that and question it more, right? Because my gut response is no. And so to allow myself to be with that more, to explore that more, to get curious about it more and experiment with it, right? Like in real situations when I normally would judge and be harsh and be like, Ariel, you're not working hard enough. You need to keep going. I would try it out. Be like, okay, if I could be compassionate in this space, let's see what happens. And every time that I did that, I was actually more productive because I released all that energy of judgment and rejection. Just like you said, it was like the judgment and rejecting is what caused the suffering and the pain. Yeah. But once you actually accept it, all that energy is released and you can actually put it into action. And so that is like the freeing irony of it all. It feels, I don't know if it's me or if other people can relate to this. For me, it felt completely counterintuitive to think that compassion, acceptance is productive because I initially associated with the opposite.
Yeah, I mean, I can see how you can make that association when you're so used to like pushing through everything. It's like compassion, like feel sorry for myself. Like what? Yeah, it feels that way. It feels like I'm feeling sorry for myself and I'm just kind of like being complacent. But that's really not what it is, like at all.
Right. And it takes a mindset shift. And I can say this, that even in working with certain clients, I tend to attract threes as well. And so that is something that I've had to build within myself. And now I'm more aware of it looking and working with clients and, challenging them to try it on too. And it does feel radically new and it does feel different, but hey, like it's just try it out, experiment with it and see what happens. It's not like, you have to buy into it right away. And similarly, it's been like, wow, I just have such a freedom of energy now. I feel, more empowered, more, in my power. And so, yeah, just something I wanted to bring up because I think a lot of people can relate to that. So
yeah, I love how everything just comes full circle. Like in order for you to really just reclaim that power that you have, that inner power that you have, right? It's about accepting yourself, accepting all of you, and giving yourself that ultimate gift of self-love, right? Because a lot of people wonder what self-love is, right? How do I self-love? Like, is it a bath? Do I get myself a massage? Do I go out and get a vacation or whatever? I mean, those are some acts of self-love, but self-love, from what I've come to understand, is really accepting all of you.
Yeah.
Whatever stage of your life you're at.
Yes.
And releasing what doesn't serve you so that you can move towards what you want to create in your life. Yeah.
Amen. Amen. Yes.
Thumbs emoji, hand up emojis.
I love releasing what no longer serves you. For sure.
Yeah, it's like shedding, inviting the new, shedding, inviting the new. You're in this evolutionary phase.
Yeah. And I like that because it's also, I think, important to highlight that, just like you had said before, it's not like you get here and then it's done. It's an ongoing process and relationship you build with yourself. So it takes maintenance, right? I still have to check in. I still get little thoughts that are like, Ariel, you're not working hard enough, or whatever it may be. But now, again, I have the awareness and the tools to see it and then to not identify and to move through it. And so that's what it's really about. And not like getting rid of it, because I don't think that's really realistic.
Right.
To just completely rid of it. So
I mean, there's a reason why it's here, right? There's a reason. So even I find myself sometimes with that judgmental voice, but it's not as loud, of course, not as loud as it used to be, but it'll show up for me. Like, say for example, I wake up and I can feel a rush of energy. Wendy, there's so much to do. There's so much to do. Get up, you need to get the kids ready, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do that. And I'm like, there's so much to do. And I could already feel the energy bubbling up inside of me right now as I speak about it. But in that moment, when those things happen, I've cultivated a practice where now in the morning when that does happen, I take a moment and I take a moment to breathe. And I got it. Hey, you. I know you just want me to do well in my day, I know you want to serve me. I know you want to make sure that I get everything in order and that we have our best day possible.
Yeah.
But that way that you do it, it's not helping me. It's not helping me at all. So here's what I'm gonna do. If I feel my head like bubbling up, I get out my notebook and I'm like, okay, get the kids ready. Write out that email, send this, do that, and X, Y, and Z, whatever. And then I'm like, whew, done. And then
and then just wants to be expressed for a moment, right? Because once that minute of attention,
exactly,
actually do it, it's like, oh, then it's all gone. You know, like the energy's released.
Exactly. I think that's powerful what you just said. That's the energy that's happening, right? And you just put it down for a second and then go out and about your day. So for me, what that looks like is having the quick meditation in the morning, or sometimes a workout, whatever feels aligned that day. Then I take a shower, get ready, show up for me first, and then I show up for the world. Right? But I show up for me first, and all these things that were in my head, they're down here, so they haven't gone anywhere. I go back, I wait, once I'm done with that, I look at my book, and then I'm like, okay, what needs to get done today? But from a different space.
Right. And you're really just more empowered to handle it all, and just from that space rather than a frantic overwhelm. And
exactly. And that's key. Empowered, right? Because you're reclaiming your power of like, I can choose and I have control over this. I have control of how I show up.
Right.
My emotions, my thoughts, my feelings are no longer running me. I'm driving. I'm running the show. Right? No matter what life throws at me, I can dodge, I can sway. I'm driving. Exactly. I'm flowing.
Yeah. Wow. This is so huge. And just to bring everything full circle, like in all these 3 episodes, the point was like a moment of change, of no longer fitting a mold that we both experienced, right? We shared a specific moment, but like we've been saying, it happens continuously throughout life. And then noticing what blocks and what forms of resistance come up for you. Okay, so that's this part. Understanding your stories, having different points of access to really start shifting maybe your mindset or your habits, things like that. And then completely upgrading your system and your identity by shifting the relationships with certain parts and patterns that maybe you judged or rejected in the past, to come to this full acceptance, full of love, embodied fullness, shining your light, answering your calling, your purpose, all the things.
Yes.
From this place, taking the action to really live full out. And so that's kind of what we walked you through in these 3 episodes in this series. And yeah, just wanted to kind of like pull that together full circle, because sometimes it's hard. I don't know. Again, I'm very visual, so I need like the blueprint and the outline. And so to like draw that in for everyone. And you can go back and re-listen to these series and episodes, because even just like we had said in episode 2, a lot of it is just flooding your subconscious with these new messages and new thoughts. So listening to the podcast, listening to inspiring creators and influencers, reading books, all the things, repetition, man. I listen to the same episodes and things over and over because I'm just trying to rewire, right? I'm trying to flood my subconscious with new ways of being. So go back and re-listen to them too, as many times as you need, because we're laying out, a blueprint and from our personal experience and professional experience as coaches, right? This is what we do. We live it, but we support our clients in navigating through all of this as well. And so, yeah, don't be afraid to ask for support and help too. So
yeah. And this is your evolution. I love Ariel, how you brought it into full circle, and the visuals really helped. It did. So just knowing that is your evolution. Everything in life, right, is happening as it should. I always like to reflect back to this to the analogy of the butterfly, right? When a butterfly is when the process of the butterfly happens when they're a caterpillar, right? They go into a cocoon to turn into a butterfly, and that process is called metamorphosis. And as the cocoon is wrapping up around the butterfly, the caterpillar, I'm butchering it up now, but around the caterpillar just kind of allows for it to happen, right? It doesn't go and resist it and go like, oh no, metamorphosis, let me out, right? It doesn't. It just allows and surrenders to that beautiful transformation that it's about to partake in, right? And then once the transformation process happens, it becomes a beautiful butterfly. And I think our evolution is a series of transformations too. Yeah. And we get to be loving and accepting of all of us, and also acknowledging that everything is happening for us.
Yes.
Right? It's all in service to our growth.
Yes. That's one of my favorite mantras and quotes, is that everything is happening for you, not to you.
Yeah. And in that point in time, in that moment in time, whatever moment in time you're in right now, is exactly where you need to be, right? Yeah. Because if it was to be any different, you'd be somewhere else. So why not give yourself love and grace in that moment?
Absolutely. I love that. And I've loved these conversations, Wendy, so much. I love this series. I'm obsessed with it. This is like my deeper jam. This is things I can really geek out on. And
same.
Like all day, dude.
Same.
So, I work in the fitness industry. I'm a fitness coach, and I sense a shift in the fitness industry and in coaches, and in wanting to do some of this deeper work, because I think we're realizing the physical transformation is great, but a lot of the times the things that are holding people back are these things that we're talking about here. And so, I am excited to be in spaces and have opportunities to talk about these things, because it's so important to everything, to a fitness goal, a life goal, a career goal, right? Whatever type of change or transformation you're wanting to make, this work is pivotal, foundational, right? To make that happen. And so I just want to share a little bit where people can connect with us more, and all of those things. So we're going to leave all of our details in the show notes below. If you resonated with anything we said, leave a comment, please. I'd love to know some of your major takeaways from this episode, from these series, from these 3-part series, and anything maybe you want to know more about, right? What are your questions? Because I like vibing with Wendy, and we might do more of these, so we'll see. And can give more value, right? We want to share. We're people of service. We're coaches. This is what we do. Leave it in the comments. But if you are really called by anything that we said, and maybe you're in a moment where you feel you're not fitting that mold and you're ready for that next step of evolution, but maybe you're not sure how to do it, maybe you feel like you need a little added support, we're going to leave both of our contact information in the show notes. Reach out to us. We would love to hear from you and set up a connection call with you guys. And then the last thing I'll say is, like I said, I'm a fitness coach too. So I am queen of physical transformation, of badassness in the gym. I love training. You want to train with me? I have some amazing programs out now. And so I'm going to leave my most recent one, Sculpt and Strengthen, inside the show notes too. You can just check out more details and even just start your transformation there too, if that feels of service to you as well. Wendy, anything else you want to add before we
wrap up? I was just like, yes, yes. I love how you just close this out right now, and just just letting everybody know that, hey, this journey is a beautiful journey. and just embrace that, right? And yes, if you want to work with us, all our details will be below. And again, thank you for being here and just taking part and allowing us to be part of your journey. And if there's anything that you guys want to learn more about, let us know. We're here, like Ariel said, we're here in service, and we want to help support you on this journey because it's one of the most beautiful journeys you could ever take.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, comment, subscribe to the video and our channels, and maybe we'll see you guys soon, right?
Yes, thank you, everybody. Thank you. We will see you guys soon. Bye.